Horner is coming back to the grid. Hamilton and Verstappen have been tipped on a new rivalry. Ferrari admits to mistakes costing it the 2025 season. Let's get into the latest F1 news. Imagine running a Formula One team for 20 years. You've built it from the ground up, won multiple championships, survived political wars, and became one of the most recognizable faces in the sport. And then, in the space of a few months, it's all gone. Christian Horner's final ties to Red Bull have just been cut. But this isn't just a team principal leave story. This is about a power shift inside one of the most successful teams in F1 history, a shift that could change Red Bull racing forever. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why Horner's exit is more than just one man leaving a job, and how the real battle for Red Bull is only just beginning. Christian Horner has officially been removed as a director of both Red Bull Racing and Red Bull Technology Limited. These were the last formal positions tying him to the team. His name is gone, and in his place, Stefan Salzer, the global head of human resources for Red Bull GmbH. On paper, it's just a corporate reshuffle. But in Formula One, paper changes usually hide the real story. This isn't just removing a man from a board seat, it's the symbolic end of Horner's operational power. It's like erasing his fingerprints from the team he helped create. Replacing Horner in the day-to-day leadership is Laurent Mekies. If that name rings a bell, it's because Mekies was the team principal of the junior outfit, Racing Bulls. Now he's stepping into the biggest job of his career, team principal and CEO of Red Bull Racing. Psychologically, this is important. Whenever a new leader comes in, especially in sports, they either try to continue the legacy or completely rewrite it. And judging by the moves being made, this could be the start of a rewrite. To understand why this change happened, we have to follow the money and the ownership. Red Bull has always been a strange mix, part Austrian, part Thai. Dietrich Mateschitz, the Austrian co-founder, ran the show for years until his death in 2022. The Thai family, led by Chalerm Uvidya, owned the other big share of the company. But recently, something changed. A 2% stake owned by Chalerm was quietly transferred to a Swiss trust called Fides Trustees SA. It sounds small, but in a company where control is everything, even 2% matters. This shift tipped the balance away from Thai dominance and towards Austrian control. And the Austrians? They've been much more open to replacing Horner. So while the headlines say Horner removed, the subtext says Austrian influence is growing fast. When ownership changes, priorities change. Under Horner, Red Bull had a certain swagger. They were bold, aggressive, willing to take risks both on and off the track. But with new leadership and stronger Austrian oversight, we might see a more traditional corporate Red Bull Racing. Less personal politics, more boardroom control. And here's the twist, this could actually make them even stronger. Why? Because when politics is stripped away, the team can focus purely on performance. But there's also the risk of losing that rebellious Red Bull spirit that's defined them for 2 decades. Let's talk human nature. In any long-running organization, the removal of a founding leader creates what psychologists call a power vacuum. That vacuum can either unite the group around a new leader, or it can spark infighting as everyone tries to grab influence. Right now, Red Bull is at that crossroads. Laurent Mekies needs to not just run the team, he needs to win the loyalty of the engineers, drivers, and the entire factory. If he fails to inspire them, even the best car on the grid could underperform. You can't talk about Red Bull without talking about Max Verstappen. He's the team's crown jewel, the driver around whom everything revolves. Horner and Max had a famously close relationship. Without Horner, will Max feel the same loyalty to the team? Or could this be the first domino to fall in a chain reaction that sees him looking elsewhere? Remember, in F1, loyalty lasts exactly as long as the winning does. Formula One thrives on stories like this. It's not just about the fastest car, it's about the politics, the rivalries, and the human drama. Red Bull's dominance over the last few years has been one of the sport's defining stories. If this leadership change disrupts that dominance, we could be heading for one of the most competitive seasons in years. Ferrari, Mercedes, McLaren, they'll all be watching closely, ready to pounce. Christian Horner's departure marks the end of an era. For some, it's overdue. For others, it's a shocking loss. But here's the thing, in Formula One, Change is the only constant. Teams rise, fall, and reinvent themselves. And while Horner's name might be gone from the boardroom, his impact will echo in the culture of Red Bull racing for years to come. The question now is simple. Will the Austrians build an even bigger empire, or will history remember this as the moment Red Bull's reign began to crack? One thing's for sure, the next few months will be telling. And when the lights go out for the next race, it won't just be about lap times. It'll be about whether Red Bull still has that killer instinct without the man who helped create it. When two giants of Formula One collide, even if only metaphorically, the world takes notice. And that's exactly what happened at the Hungarian Grand Prix. Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton, two names that define an era, two drivers with enough history to fill entire seasons of documentaries. But on this particular weekend, their paths crossed in a way that left fans, pundits, and even Red Bull scratching their heads. Today, we're diving deep into what happened, what was said, and why this incident might just be another chapter in one of the sport's greatest rivalries. Let's set the scene. The Hungaroring, a track known for its tight corners, limited overtaking opportunities, and the kind of high-pressure racing that tests every ounce of a driver's skill. The crowd? Electric. The stakes? Sky high. And in the middle of it all, Verstappen and Hamilton found themselves locked in a battle that reminded everyone why these two dominate headlines. It all started with an aggressive move from Hamilton. The seven-time world champion saw a gap, tiny, risky, but just enough for a racer's instinct to take over. He lunged. The cars came close, very close. Now, here's where it gets interesting. According to Red Bull's acting sporting director Stephen Knowles, Verstappen had to take evasive action to avoid contact. In his own words, it wasn't just about defending position, it was about preventing a collision that could have ended both their races on the spot. From the outside, it looked like a split-second racing moment, but inside the paddock, it sparked a storm of opinions. The stewards looked into it, reviewing footage, telemetry, and every available camera angle. In the end, no penalties were handed out. For some, that was the right call. For others, it was yet another example of inconsistency in stewarding. And if you've been following F1 for a while, you know this isn't the first time Verstappen and Hamilton have been under the microscope together. Au matter abide. From Silverstone 2021 to Monza, their history is full of incidents where fractions of a second turned into weeks of debate. Psychologically, this is fascinating. In high-level sport, especially F1, the brain processes information at lightning speed. Drivers make decisions in less than 0.5 seconds, often based on instinct rather than logic. Hamilton saw an opening and committed. Verstappen saw danger and reacted. Neither wants to yield. Both want to assert dominance. And here's where rivalry fuels performance. Studies in competitive psychology show that when rivals are involved, athletes take more risks. They push deeper into their limits. Sometimes that leads to brilliance. Sometimes it leads to the edge of disaster. Back to the race. Verstappen didn't lose position, but the moment rattled the team. Red Bull, still focused on maintaining their season dominance, knows that any unnecessary damage could be costly, especially with Ferrari and McLaren lurking in the standings. Stephen Knowles was clear in his post-race analysis. From his perspective, Hamilton's move was on the limit. Not dirty, but dangerous. It forced Verstappen to act defensively in a way that took him off his optimal racing line. Hamilton, for his part, didn't see it as overly aggressive. In his mind, it was a fair attempt to seize an opportunity, the kind of move champions have to try if they want to win. And this is where the beauty and chaos of Formula One comes in. Two drivers, two perspectives, one moment. Both are convinced they acted within the bounds of racing. The stewards agree there was no foul, and yet the tension lingers. The fans certainly felt it. Social media lit up. Some hailed Hamilton for showing that hunger to fight at the front again. Others backed Verstappen, saying he handled the pressure like a true champion. No matter which side you were on, one thing was clear. F1 is at its best when these two are wheel to wheel. Now, let's talk long-term impact. Incidents like this can shape how drivers race each other in the future. Once trust is tested, even slightly, every move becomes calculated differently. Next time Hamilton makes a dive on Verstappen, Max might close the door a fraction earlier. Next time Verstappen attacks, Hamilton might defend with just a little more aggression. In F1, small adjustments like that can be the difference between a clean overtake and a race-ending crash. And then there's the mental game. Verstappen is in the middle of a dominant era, winning races with surgical precision. Hamilton, on the other hand, is chasing that elusive win in the hybrid era's latest chapter, determined to prove he's still got the edge. This Hungarian flashpoint might have been brief, but it fed the fire for both of them. And when the championship is on the line, even subconscious motivators like this can tilt the scales. It also raises the question, are we seeing the early stages of a renewed Verstappen-Hamilton rivalry? After all, the ingredients are there: history, respect, mixed with competitiveness, and the ever-present risk of a high-stakes collision. And for the sport, that's pure gold. Rivalries draw in casual viewers. They keep hardcore fans glued to the screen. They turn ordinary Grand Prix into must-watch events. As the dust settles from Hungary, both drivers will already have their eyes on the next round. Verstappen will be focused on keeping the momentum going. Hamilton will be looking for that breakthrough moment to climb back onto the top step. But one thing is certain: the psychological shadow of Hungary will follow them into future battles. So, was Hamilton's move bold and brilliant, or over the line? Was Verstappen right to call it risky, or was that just racing at its purest? That's the beauty of Formula One. There's room for interpretation, room for debate, and always room for another dramatic chapter in this never-ending story. Whatever your take, one fact remains: when Verstappen and Hamilton go wheel to wheel, you can't look away. And after Hungary, we'll all be watching even closer the next time it happens. What if I told you the man who built Red Bull Racing from scratch could be about to take over one of the most struggling teams in Formula One? Christian Horner, a man who's been at the top for 2 decades, suddenly out of a job, and now linked to one of the most shocking career moves in F1 history. But is this really happening? And what does it mean for the future of the sport? Let's dive in. Christian Horner's story with Red Bull has been nothing short of legendary. Joining in 2005 as a fresh-faced 31-year-old, he led the team to 6 Constructors' Championships and 7 Drivers' Championships. Under his leadership, Red Bull went from being the fun party team of the paddock to one of the most dominant forces in Formula One. And then, just like that, it's over. Earlier this month, Red Bull confirmed Horner's departure. No farewell tour, no gradual handover, just gone. For fans, it was surreal. For rivals, it was an opportunity. And for Horner, it could be the start of a new chapter nobody saw coming. Almost immediately after the news broke, whispers began. Alpine, the French team that's been struggling to find its place in the midfield, might be preparing to make Horner an offer. Not just a job, but an ownership stake. Why does that matter? Because in modern F1, power isn't just about running the team. It's about having a seat at the ownership table. Just ask Adrian Newey, who recently joined Aston Martin with a similar arrangement. It's a move that could give Horner not just a role, but control. But there's another twist in this story. Flavio Briatore, the man who led Benetton and Renault to championships in the 90s and 2000s, is currently serving as a senior advisor to Alpine. Briatore is, let's say, a controversial figure in Formula One. Known for his business flair, his sharp suits, and his involvement in the infamous Crashgate scandal, Briatore's style is pure old-school F1 politics. And while some see him as the kind of power player Alpine needs, others, like former driver Ralf Schumacher, think his era is over. In Schumacher's own words, "The time of figures like Flavio Briatore is over." Ralf Schumacher believes that Alpine needs something different, not just a flashy deal-maker, not someone who thrives on controversy, but a leader who understands the modern Formula One ecosystem, the technology, the regulations, the hybrid era mindset. And in his view, Christian Horner is exactly that person. Horner isn't just a PR frontman, he's deeply involved in the technical side of the team, from recruitment to car development to long-term planning. In short, he's a builder, and Alpine desperately needs a builder. Let's be honest, Alpine's road has been rough. The team has bounced between management structures, suffered from inconsistent results, and struggled to keep top-tier talent. They've had flashes of brilliance, like Esteban Ocon's win in Hungary, but nothing sustained. If Horner were to step in, he wouldn't just be taking a job. He'd be taking on one of the biggest rebuilding projects in the sport. And here's the thing, for someone like Horner, that might be exactly the challenge he's looking for. Let's step into Horner's shoes for a moment. You've just been removed from the team you built. Your legacy is secure, but your reputation is still on the line. Do you walk away quietly, or do you take on a new challenge that could prove, once again, that you're one of the greatest team principals of all time? Psychologically, this is about legacy and control. Two powerful motivators that drive top performers to keep pushing, even when they don't have to. For Horner, joining Alpine wouldn't just be about money or status. It would be about rewriting the ending to his career on his own terms. If Horner joins Alpine, the ripple effects across Formula One would be massive. Red Bull would be watching closely, knowing that their former leader could soon be a direct competitor. Other midfield teams would need to raise their game, because a Horner-led Alpine could quickly become a threat. And fans? They'd have a whole new rivalry to follow, Horner versus his old team. It's the kind of drama F1 thrives on. Of course, it's not that simple. First, Alpine's current structure isn't exactly smooth. There are multiple layers of management. And Horner would need the freedom to make sweeping changes. Second, Briatore's role could be a sticking point. Horner is used to being the top decision maker. Having another big personality in the mix could be a deal breaker. And finally, there's the question of whether Horner even wants to jump back in so quickly after his Red Bull exit. Formula One doesn't wait. Pre-season preparations are already underway, and if Alpine wants Horner, they'll need to move fast. The longer they wait, the more other opportunities in F1 or beyond might open up for him. And if history has taught us anything, it's that in this sport, timing is everything. So, will Christian Horner really make the leap from Red Bull to Alpine? Will we see him go head-to-head with the team he turned into a dynasty? Or is this just one of those wild F1 rumors that disappears as quickly as it appeared? One thing's for sure, the story's not over. In fact, it might just be getting started.